Hey everybody, today we're going to use this free program called Snazzy Maps to make a map. And we're going to start by going to build a map. And if you zoom out here, you can see that it's literally a map of everything. But we're going to do one of Charleston. So the first thing we're going to do is come over to this size and location, and just going to open that up, and we'll click this height, I'm sorry, and we're going to change that to 100%. So now we just need to move back down to Charleston. We'll zoom in on that. And what we want to do is just kind of get it oriented how we want to use it. I really want to focus on having Charleston be the center of this piece. It's going to be a round table. So what I'm doing is just, zooming in and out to get it to be the exact size that I want and everything. And I'm kind of centering it up on the workpiece itself. So now we're going to go to Style. And there's two that we're looking for. We're going to do only water and only roads. So you can search for each of those. We started out by searching only roads, and you'll find this one here that comes up called only roads. And now what we're going to do is take a screenshot of this. And we're just going to screenshot this map area. So I'm using a Mac. It may be slightly different than how you do it. But again, you're just going to want to make a screenshot and save that. And now we're going to go to only water. And if you scroll through all these, there's a ton of different options. These are just the ones that I like for this project. Maybe some others will be better for other projects. But again, we're going to screenshot this and download it. Now that we've got that saved, we're going to come into Convertio. And again, that's a free online converter. And we're just going to open those two files. Now we want to make sure that we have SVG selected. There's a number of things that you can convert it to, but we want to use an SVG, and you're just going to click Convert. Now you're limited to 2 downloads at a time, and also there's a certain daily limit, which you can create an account and get around that, which you have to pay for. I haven't hit that limit yet, so I haven't done that. But if you find that you are, you might want to do that. So now we're going to open up Inkscape, now that we've saved both of those SVGs. And we're going to open up both of those files. And we're just going to zoom in on it, get it to where it's a good size on our screen. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to, we're going to select it first, and then we'll go to Object, and we'll click Ungroup, and then we're going to click Path and Union. Now that we have those two steps done, I'm making a round table, so I'm going to draw a circle over it. And we'll click this tool to let us select it. And then if you look up here, we've got a bunch of sizing options. I'd like to change it to inch. Now I've played around with this a little bit, so I know already what size is good, but just experiment with different sizes. This doesn't necessarily have to be the size that your table is going to be. It just needs to be the size of what your image is going to be on that table. And I just, get it so it's kind of centered over it. And what I do is I select each of these different numbers up here for different positions and just make them something easy to remember, like this. I'm just rounding up to 8 and I'm changing this to 0.5. And the reason this is important is that on our other screen we need to make sure that these are all exactly the same, and that's just going to make it so that everything is the same size when we bring them into Carbide Create. Alright, now I'm selecting both the circle and the map, and I'm just going to path and exclusion. And what that does is that deletes everything outside of that circle. There's other ways to do this in Inkscape, like clips and stuff, but if you use that, it doesn't actually delete those vectors. So when you bring it into Carbide Create, it would still be the whole image. So this is the best way that I've found to do this. And then all I do is reduce the actual outside of the canvas to our image size. We'll go ahead and save that. Now we're going to do the exact same thing to the other file. Alright, so again, we'll just kind of get it to a good size, and we're going to go to, we're going to select it first, obviously, and we're going to say Object, Ungroup, and now it's still selected. We say Path and Union, and now we're going to go ahead and draw that circle again. Like I said, we're just going to make everything the exact same size that the other one was. So we'll set these each to 28. We'll set this to 8. And this to 0.5. And now we've got the circle selected. We're going to select the map. And again, we're going to go up to path and exclusion. And that's just going to delete everything outside of that circle. Again, just make our canvas the exact size of our drawing. And go ahead and save it. Now we'll open Carbide Create. And we're going to import each of these SVGs that we just edited. We want to group them when we bring them in. So we brought the first one in, regroup it, bring the second one in, group that also. And now I just move them each off to the side so I can work on them individually. Probably could have brought them in one at a time and done this, but this is just the way I chose to do it. My computer's a little laggy when I do these screen captures, so it's taking an extra minute to move everything around. There's a lot of vectors that we're trying to move, especially with those streets. Now that we've got these both in, let's just go ahead and save. It's important to save often. You don't want to design a whole project and have something happen and lose everything that you've done. So like I said, save often. And what we're going to do is draw a circle around each of these images that we brought in. And just make it a rough size, and then we'll go in and change these numbers to 28. That's going to change our diameter to 28 inches. And what I do is just move them around and get them to line up perfectly with the outline of the, in this case, the water. I just try to get that as close as possible. And that looks pretty good. And again, it's just being a little laggy because I'm doing this screen capture right now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and select the water outline and the circle outline that we just made, and I'm going to group them together. And then I'm going to align it, and I'm going to make sure that I'm aligning it to the stock, and I'll put it right in the center. So I already had my my stock size set to 30 by 30 inches, so that's why everything is kind of lining up perfect for me. You just may need to adjust those settings. We'll draw another circle over the streets. Again, change that diameter to 28 inches and just move it around so that it lines up perfectly with the edges of the street map. Another way to do this probably would have been in Inkscape, draw another circle just slightly outside of the 28-inch diameter, and that'll give us another line that we could do a stroke over. All right, so that looks good. We'll group those two together. And then again, we're going to align it to our stock. So next what we want to do is ungroup each of the either the streets or in this case the water from that circle that we drew around them. So we'll just select that and then click ungroup. And then we'll select the streets and ungroup that. If we didn't do that, it would have just cut everything out weird because we wouldn't have had the right parts selected. So let's start by selecting the water outline. And you want to make sure that you're on the design page for this. If you went over to the toolpath, you'd have to select everything individually. But because we have it grouped together, when you're on the design page, you select it and it'll select everything. Now we can go over to the toolpath page and start selecting our toolpaths. What I like to do is start with a big bit. We'll use a 1/4 inch in this case, and we're going to do our pocket. All right, we'll just we change this to 0.2 deep, and we'll edit our speeds just a little bit. We don't need our step over to be as much because we're going to be filling this area with epoxy, but we'll still get a pretty smooth finish even though we're making this bigger. We can turn our feed rate up a little bit. We can also mess with the percentages, 100 to 200% or less while we're running it. We'll see how it runs and adjust them accordingly. So now we still have the water outline highlighted, and we're going to next do a 1/8 inch bit. Change our feed rates again, depth per pass, and our plunge rate. And for this, we're just going to be doing a inside outline. And that's just going to get, a little bit into these smaller areas, and it's going to clean up the edge of our cut all around the water. And now we're going to do one more tool path while we have the water selected. We're going to select our 031 bit. And this is still too small to get into some of these little streams here. Let's go ahead and change our feed rates real quick again. Everything's set pretty conservatively by Carbide Create, but it'll take a long time to cut if we don't adjust them. Okay, so we're not going to select a inside or outside or a pocket. We're going to select no offset. And that will make these lines a little bit bigger, but it's still going to look good. We're using a very small bit. And we won't go as deep with this one. We were going 0.2. We'll just go 0.1 with this. All right, so we've got 3 different tool paths for the water. Go ahead and save that again. Now we're going to select the streets. And make sure we're on the design page for that. Otherwise, we'll just select one little portion. I'll go back to toolpath. And what we're going to do is V-carve these. We don't have like big areas like the water here. That's why the V-carve really wouldn't have worked good for the water, but it's going to work fine for the streets. Generally, I use a 60-degree V-bit, and that's what I have programmed as this number 400 bit. And just in case you want to take a look at it, these are what my feed rates are, and it's just what the factory settings were. And that's what the streets look like. Now there's one more thing that we're going to do. We're going to make an outline around here. My stock is 2-inch thick, and I have that set up in the settings. So we're just going to do an outside tool path. I'm going to use this 1/4-inch bit. It's a nice fast cutting bit. Makes a lot of chips, but I've got a dust collector that'll keep up with it. All right, we'll leave those feeds and speeds alone. We'll add some tabs in just so this thing doesn't go flying while we're cutting it. 4 would probably be enough, but it's not really going to make a big difference as far as removing more of them. So we'll just adjust some of our settings on here for them. We'll make them a little taller, actually. Just make sure we change that to our stock height. Actually, should have gone to just a little bit over that, and we'll cut into the wasteboard a little bit. So we'll save that again, and let's take a look at the simulation. And there we are. So what the plan for this is, I'm going to cut the 3 different water tool paths out, and I'm going to fill that with a blue epoxy. I'm going to come back through and level it. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that yet. We can use a belt sander, or even set a tool path and use you know, like a 1-inch bit to flatten everything. Then we're going to come through after that dries, and we're going to do our streets. And the plan is to fill that with black epoxy. And again, we'll smooth that out. And then the final step is going to be to cut it out. You know, after I do that, I'll put a nice chamfer on it. This is going to be a tabletop. So I'm going to probably put like a 45-degree chamfer on the bottom. But that's stuff that I'll do with my router table. All right, I hope this answered some questions for you. You know, this is a project that I've really wanted to do for a long time, and I just honestly didn't know how to do it. I'd never messed with Inkscape before, so I'm glad I'm starting to get into that. If this did help you out, please give me a like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, and I'm going to put all the links to everything in the description. Also, please check me out at Facebook and Instagram. Both of those accounts are under Full Steam Designs. And, you know, again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you, everybody.